somewhere in the unfathomable depths of the universe, beyond the reach of known civilizations, a desperate cry for help echoed across the void. It was not the kind of signal sent by an explorer eager to make contact, nor was it the calculated transmission of an interstellar diplomat. It was an SOS, frantic, terrified, and filled with an urgency that defied the cold indifference of space. It was a call that no one could ignore. The message arrived in the most primal language of the cosmos, mathematics. A pulse, perfectly timed, repeating in a universal sequence, unmistakably artificial. No natural phenomenon could create such precision. No random burst of radiation could sustain such a pattern. Someone, or something, had sent this message intentionally. But what made it truly terrifying was its simplicity. Just 3 words, repeated endlessly in binary. Help us. They are coming. The signal originated from deep within the Perseus, arm of the Milky Way, a vast, spiraling region of the galaxy that held more mysteries than answers. It came from a sector where no known civilizations existed, where even the most advanced probes had barely scratched the surface. A void within a void. Until now. At first, only the most powerful listening arrays on Earth detected the transmission. The signal was old, nearly 50 years by the time it reached human ears. Whatever had already happened. And yet, the message still pulsed, as if trapped in time, repeating endlessly. There was no follow-up, no confirmation, no second signal to indicate if those who sent it were still alive. Humanity was not alone in hearing it. Across the vast expanse of the galaxy, other spacefaring civilizations also intercepted the distress call. Some listened and dismissed it, opting to ignore whatever disaster had unfolded. Others debated among their councils, wary of walking into a catastrophe that was not their own. To them, it was not worth the risk. But humanity? Humanity was different. For all of its flaws, its wars, its conflicts, its divisions, humanity had never been one to stand idly by when someone cried for help. It had crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and ventured into the abyss, not for conquest, but for the sheer defiance of the unknown. And now, at the precipice of interstellar existence, it had a choice. Governments hesitated. Was this a trap? Was it some elaborate deception orchestrated by an unseen force? Could answering the call invite doom upon Earth? The questions were endless, but the reality was simple. This message had changed everything. It was proof that intelligent life beyond humanity existed. It was proof that not all civilizations were secure in their power. And above all, it was a warning. Then, there was something else. As humanity's greatest cryptographers and AI-driven analysis teams deconstructed the signal, they discovered an anomaly. A secondary frequency, weak and distorted, hiding beneath the main distress call. At first it seemed like nothing more than background radiation. But further analysis revealed something far more chilling. The faint echoes of another transmission, one that wasn't a cry for help. It was a response. A transmission filled with strange, incomprehensible patterns, as if something else, something unknown, had already answered the call before humanity ever received it. But this secondary message wasn't a rescue signal. It didn't contain coordinates or a comforting reply. It was irregular, pulsing at unpredictable intervals, like a predator stalking its prey. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Right now, HFY Chronicles-849 is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you enjoy unraveling the mysteries of the universe, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us grow this community together. The debate raged. Some argued that this was none of humanity's concern, that venturing into the unknown for the sake of an ancient distress call was reckless at best, suicidal at worst. Others believed that this was the opportunity of a lifetime to not only make first contact, but to prove that humanity was ready for its place in the galactic order. But in the end, the decision was made. Humanity would do what it had always done. It would step forward where others had stepped back. A coalition of Earth's greatest scientific minds and military strategists came together to form Project Aegis, an unprecedented effort to investigate the distress call and, if possible, offer aid to whoever had sent it. At its heart was the UNSS Revelation, a cutting-edge deep space vessel designed for long-duration interstellar travel. armed with quantum communications, advanced AI guidance, and experimental stealth shielding. The ship was built for one purpose: to go where no human had ever gone before. The crew was selected from the best humanity had to offer: seasoned explorers, linguists, scientists, and elite tactical specialists. Their mission: to locate the source of the transmission, assess the situation, and determine whether humanity could provide aid, or if it was already too late. As the UNSS Revelation prepared for launch, the entire world watched. Some with hope, others with fear. This was not just a mission, it was a statement. Humanity was no longer confined to the cradle of Earth. It had heard the call of the cosmos, and for better or worse, it was answering. The countdown to humanity's boldest mission had begun. The UNSS Revelation, a vessel unlike any before it, stood ready at Earth's most advanced orbital shipyard, a titan of engineering, bristling with cutting-edge technology, designed to brave the unknown. It was more than a ship. It was a statement, a declaration that humanity would not be a silent observer in the grand theater of the cosmos. But as final preparations were made, tensions ran high. The mystery surrounding the distress call had only deepened. The secondary transmission, weak, fragmented, and disturbing, continued to defy full decryption. Some believed it was nothing more than signal interference. Others feared it was something far more ominous. Whatever the case, one undeniable fact remained: the original transmission had been looping for 50 years. If there were survivors, they had been waiting in desperation for decades. If not, humanity would be walking into the graveyard of a lost civilization. The mission demanded only the best. The crew of the UNSS Revelation was hand-picked from elite scientists, engineers, and military operatives, each chosen for their expertise in deep space survival, first contact scenarios, and high-stakes problem-solving. They were pioneers, heading into the unknown armed with nothing but their wits, their courage, and the most advanced ship ever built. At the helm stood Captain Elias Voss, a seasoned explorer with experience in navigating the harshest frontiers of space. His reputation was legendary: calm under pressure, relentless in pursuit of knowledge, and utterly unshaken by the unknown. Alongside him, Dr. Celine Orloff, an expert in xenolinguistics and cryptography, would lead efforts to decipher any language or data they encountered. Commander Ryland Graves, a hardened military strategist, ensured that if diplomacy failed, humanity would not be caught defenseless. Final checks were completed. Fuel reserves were at maximum capacity. The AI core, Argus, ran predictive models of the upcoming journey, calculating thousands of possible outcomes, few of them comforting. And then, the launch. The UNSS Revelation ignited its experimental Alcubierre drive, bending space itself to surpass the limitations of light speed. No human vessel had ever traveled this far, this fast. As the ship tore through the void, Earth became nothing more than a distant memory, a pale blue dot swallowed by the endless black. The crew was alone now, on a journey of no return. The target system, now designated Perseus 918, lay nearly 15,000 light-years away, a voyage that, even at their speed, would take weeks to complete. Time aboard the Revelation became surreal. Half the crew immersed in training simulations and first contact protocol drills, while the other half monitored long-range sensors, scanning for any signs of what awaited them. Days turned into weeks. The deeper they traveled into the uncharted reaches of space, the more anomalies they encountered. The closer they got to Perseus 918, the more the original distress signal grew. Unstable, glitches, distortions, strange fluctuations. It was almost as if the message itself was decaying, unraveling at the edges. And then, the secondary transmission changed. What had once been mere background noise, indecipherable and chaotic, suddenly took on a chilling structure. Patterns emerged, eerily rhythmic. The AI, Argus, ran simulations and made a disturbing discovery. The transmission wasn't just a signal. It was a pulse that was getting stronger. The realization hit the crew with an eerie sense of dread. Whatever had responded to the distress call before humanity, it was still active. And then, they finally arrived. As the UNSS Revelation exited its Alcubierre bubble, the view before them was breathtaking and horrifying. The system was a graveyard. A dying star loomed at the center, casting an eerie red glow over a shattered planetary system. Asteroids and debris drifted in chaotic orbits, remnants of once thriving worlds now reduced to dust. But what truly sent chills through the crew were the colossal remains of starships, floating lifelessly in the void. Hulking alien vessels of a civilization that had been utterly destroyed. Their distress call had been heard, but humanity was too late. Or so they thought. A faint energy signature flickered on the edge of their sensors. Something was still alive out there. Something hidden. Something waiting. And as the revelation moved closer, scanning the wreckage, they saw it. A lone structure. A station barely holding itself together, its lights flickering weakly against the abyss. A final remnant of a fallen empire. And inside, perhaps the last survivors of a civilization that had screamed for help and been ignored by all but one species. As the UNSS Revelation drifted cautiously toward the derelict station, the crew was silent. Every eye was fixed on the displays, scanning the fractured remains of what was once a thriving civilization. The station was colossal, its design unlike anything seen before. Jagged architecture, dark metallic plating scarred by what looked like centuries of battle damage. A symbol of a long-lost empire, or a warning of what awaited inside. Captain Elias Voss studied the sensor readings. The station was barely operational, with power fluctuating at unstable levels. But one thing was certain. There was something alive in there. A faint biosignature, erratic but undeniable. "Prepare for a boarding operation," Voss ordered. The tension was thick as the landing team was assembled. Commander Ryland Graves led the security detail, each soldier clad in reinforced EVA suits, armed with kinetic pulse rifles in case the unknown turned hostile. Dr. Selena Orloff and her team of scientists carried specialized scanners, ready to analyze whatever remnants of this lost civilization remained. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic groan, shaking the Revelation slightly as the boarding tube extended. Beyond the airlock, nothing but darkness. The station's interior was a tomb. Step by step, the team moved inside, their helmet lights cutting through the oppressive gloom. The air was stale, laced with the scent of decay and something more unsettling, an almost metallic tang that clung to the walls. Shadows danced as flickering emergency lights struggled to stay active. Then, they saw the first signs of life. Sort of. Corpses. Dozens of them, strewn across the corridors, frozen in agonized positions. Some were slumped over consoles, others huddled in corners, skeletal remains locked in a death that had come suddenly and without mercy. But it was their forms that sent shivers down the team's spines. These beings were tall, standing nearly 8 feet, their elongated skulls adorned with intricate plating that looked almost like ceremonial armor fused with their biology. Their arms were long and slender, ending in 3 elongated fingers. Whatever they had been, they were clearly an advanced race, now reduced to nothing but dust. Dr. Orloff knelt beside one of the corpses, running a scanner over its remains. Genetic structure. Unknown. But these markings, she gestured, to intricate symbols etched into the bone plating of the being's skull. This wasn't just a civilization. This was an empire. Further down the corridor, a terminal flickered weakly. Graves gestured to his team. "Get that thing running," as the system powered up. Ancient symbols scrolled across the cracked display. The AI Argus patched into the team's suits immediately began decrypting the text. It was a language lost to time, complex, layered, but structured enough that Argus could piece together fragments. Then, the words came through. "They are still here." A cold silence fell over the team. Voss's voice was low. "Who's still here?" As if in response, the station groaned, metal shifting like a beast stirring from slumber. Something deeper inside had awakened. Then the screaming began. It was distant, echoing through the station's hollow corridors, a sound that wasn't entirely organic. A screech, layered with something wrong, as if metal itself was shrieking. The sound of something hunting. The biosignature they had detected wasn't one life form. It was many. Back to the airlock. Now, Graves ordered, raising his weapon. The team moved quickly, their boots clanking against the metallic floor. Shadows flickered at the edges of their vision. Motion trackers pinged. Dozens of signatures. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, shifting, unnaturally, as if the station wasn't just falling apart, it was changing. Then they saw it. A figure emerged from the darkness, moving with a disturbing, inhuman fluidity. It was tall, its body partially metallic, partially organic, its eyes glowing like embers in the void. Its face, if it could even be called that, was twisted, frozen in a grotesque mockery of a scream. Its limbs twitched erratically, moving as if controlled by something unseen. It wasn't alive. It wasn't dead. It was something else. And then it charged. Pulse rifles erupted in blue flashes as the security team opened fire, but the creature moved too fast. It dodged, twisted, crawled along the walls like an insect, its movements impossible to predict. It let out another shriek, metal grinding against metal, before lunging at one of the soldiers. A sickening crack echoed through the corridor. The man barely had time to scream before the creature's claws pierced straight through his suit, lifting him off the ground. The rest of the team didn't hesitate. They ran. Orlov gasped as more figures began emerging from the shadows. Not just one, not just a few. Hundreds. They were everywhere. Shambling, shifting, merging with the walls, the floors, the very structure of the station itself. These weren't just the remnants of a lost civilization. This was the civilization. Twisted, corrupted, enslaved by something far worse. And then, the station itself came alive. Lights flared. The corridors moved, shifting like a living organism, closing off escape routes, guiding the intruders deeper inside. Whatever intelligence still existed, here, it knew they were trying to flee, and it wouldn't let them. Captain Voss's voice cut through the comms. "Get back to the Revelation! We're getting out of here now!" But as the airlock came into view, the station responded. The entrance sealed shut with a bone-rattling clang. Trapped, and from the darkness, the horde closed in. Then, a new voice echoed through the station's ancient comm system. Faint, raspy, barely alive. "You shouldn't have come here." The eerie voice crackled through the station's ancient comm system, distorted by centuries of decay. It was a whisper laced with something beyond exhaustion, warning, fear, despair. Commander Ryland Graves spun around, scanning for the source. Who said that? His pulse rifle was raised, his gloved finger hovering over the trigger. But the voice didn't answer. Dr. Celine Orlov, still panting from the mad sprint toward the sealed airlock, activated her omniscanner. "There's something else here," she muttered, eyes wide. "Another life sign, different from the others." The station lurched. Metal groaned as if it were alive, shifting beneath their feet. The monstrous figures in the darkness stopped. For a moment, the air was filled with a terrible, unsettling silence, like the universe itself had paused. Then, the walls moved. With a sickening grind, a section of the corridor twisted apart, revealing a new passage. The flickering remnants of alien emergency lights cast a deep crimson glow into the shifting tunnel beyond. The way it formed, it wasn't random. It was guiding them. Captain Elias Voss's voice came through their helmets, sharp and controlled. "You need to move, now. Whatever's happening, the Revelation systems are reading a massive power surge coming from deep inside that station." Graves clenched his jaw. "A trap." Orlov shook her head. "Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way out." A second voice, deep, guttural, inhuman, screeched through the comms. It was static and distortion, but the meaning was clear. "Join us. Join the chorus." The creatures twitched. The momentary pause ended, and then they charged. The air filled with unearthly shrieks as the horrors surged forward, their twisted forms shifting, merging into the station itself as they moved. Some scuttled along the ceiling, others lunged forward in grotesque jerking motions, their bodies phasing in and out of the flickering light. "Move!" Graves roared. The team plunged into the newly formed corridor, pulse rifles flashing as they laid down suppressive fire. The creatures screeched, recoiling as rounds slammed into them. Some rounds passed through as if the creatures weren't fully real, while others tore through twisted flesh and metal. But no matter how many fell, more kept coming. They sprinted down the passage, twisting through the bowels of the ancient station. The walls trembled around them, pulsating like the veins of some slumbering beast. They weren't in control anymore. The station was deciding their path. The voice crackled again, this time clearer, closer, desperate. You must reach the core. It is the only way. Orlov's scanner beeped wildly. They're hurting us! Graves clenched his teeth. Then, let's see where they want us to go. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, unlike anything they had seen before. It stretched into darkness, a cathedral of alien engineering. Massive pillars of pulsating metal rose to impossible heights, inscribed with symbols that glowed faintly, an ancient language still whispering its long-forgotten warnings. And at the very center, something waited. Suspended within a cyclopean sphere of shifting energy, a figure was trapped. A survivor, or what was left of one. It was one of the station's original inhabitants, or at least its broken remains. Its massive frame was barely recognizable, its body half fused with alien machinery, tendrils of biometal weaving through its skeletal structure. Its eyes, they still glowed with something that was neither alive nor fully dead. Orlov gasped. They tried to resist. The figure's head snapped toward them, and suddenly, their helmet comms were filled with its voice, not as words, but as memories. A vision erupted in their minds, a civilization, once powerful, spanning countless systems, a race of architects, builders, explorers. They had discovered something vast and ancient, drifting in the void between galaxies, a construct, not of their making, but of something older, hungrier. They had studied it, tried to understand it. But in their ignorance, they had awakened it. The entity. It had no true form, no singular shape. It was a hunger, a force beyond physical constraints. It spread like an infection, consuming minds first, then bodies, then entire worlds. It did not destroy civilizations, it converted them. The vision ended. Orlov staggered backward, clutching her helmet. This station, it was a battleground. She looked up at the imprisoned survivor. They were the last ones who tried to fight back. The figure's voice returned, weak but insistent. You must end this, or your kind will be next. A deep rumbling shook the chamber. From the shadows the horrors stirred, shrieking with renewed fury. The station reacted, walls shifting, closing in, and from the abyss, something vast began to stir. Something ancient. Something that had waited far too long for another civilization to fall into its grasp. And it had just found its next meal. The chamber trembled as a massive force stirred within the void. The whispering echoes of the alien survivors' memories still rippled through the team's minds, leaving behind a chilling certainty. They were running out of time. Orlov's Omni-scanner flickered violently, readings spiking off the charts. Something's waking up, she gasped, staring at the readings in disbelief. It's beyond anything I've ever seen. Graves barely registered her words. His attention was locked onto the being trapped within the energy sphere. Its glowing mechanical eyes met his, and for the first time, he truly understood. This thing, this twisted fusion of biology and machine, wasn't just a victim. It was the last surviving guardian, and it was barely holding back something far, far worse. A deep, reverberating hum began to fill the chamber. The energy field flickered, sending waves of distortion rippling through the air. The entity, the force that had consumed this station's original inhabitants, was awakening, and it was hungry. From the abyss beyond the chamber, the shadows moved. They didn't simply shift or stretch. They pulsed, undulated, like a living, breathing organism. Eyes, hundreds of them, began to open within the darkness, glistening with unnatural intelligence. The horrors that had chased them through. The station froze, as if awaiting commands. Then, as one, they turned. Not toward the humans, but toward the imprisoned guardian. A single realization crashed into Graves like a thunderbolt. They weren't trying to kill us. They were trying to stop us from freeing it. The survivor's voice cut through the comms again, ragged and strained. You must choose. Destroy me, or set me free. Voss's voice crackled in their earpieces. What the hell is going on down there? The Revelation scanners just picked up a colossal energy surge. A new sound roared through the chamber. A voice. No. Voices. Thousands of them. Screaming. A choir of endless torment. A chorus of the lost. The entity in the abyss was speaking. Join. US. Join the chorus. Join the everlasting. The walls of the station began to bend inward, twisting like liquid metal. The chamber itself was no longer stable. It was shifting, warping around them, as if the very fabric of reality was breaking apart. Orlov's hands flew over her scanner, frantic. It's not just waking up. It's trying to consume the station. If it fully manifests, it'll spread beyond here. It won't stop. Graves knew what she wasn't saying. It would find Earth, and it would not be stopped. Captain, he growled into his comm, eyes locked on the pulsating sphere that held the last Guardian. We have a choice to make. Voss's voice came, back, sharp and controlled. Say it. Graves steadied himself, feeling the weight of what he was about to say. We either destroy this thing completely, or we set it free and pray to whatever gods are left that it's still on our side. The entity's voices rose, a tidal wave of sound that threatened to shatter their minds. The horrors in the chamber charged, their twisted liquid metal bodies merging and shifting as they rushed forward. There was no more time to think. Orlov pulled up the station's ancient control interface. The choice was theirs. Overload the station's core, triggering a cascade that would collapse this place into itself, taking the entity and everything inside with it, including them. Disable the containment field and release the last Guardian, hoping it still had the strength to fight back. The team exchanged glances. The choice was clear. Graves clenched his jaw and barked the order. Do it. Now. Orlov's fingers flew over the console. The interface resisted, systems fighting back, but she forced it through. With a final keystroke, the station's ancient mechanisms roared to life. The Guardian's eyes flared with a brilliant, searing light. The containment field collapsed, and the abyss screamed. A tidal wave of black tendrils lashed outward, seeking to consume, to assimilate. But before they could reach the Guardian, everything exploded into light. A shock wave erupted from the being's core, a pulse of searing white energy that tore through the chamber like a solar flare. The horrors disintegrated on impact, their shrieks of agony silenced in an instant. But the entity in the abyss, it fought back. The walls rippled, its shifting form struggling against the Guardian's power. A final guttural roar of pure hatred echoed through the collapsing station as it lashed out, its shadows reaching for them one last time. And then, all at once, it was gone. Silence. The station groaned, its structural integrity failing. The last Guardian collapsed to its knees, its form flickering, dying. Graves's comm crackled. Revelation to ground team. Your life signs are barely holding. We're bringing you out. Stand by for emergency extraction. Orlov grabbed Graves's arm, her breath ragged. We need to know. Was it enough? The Guardian's flickering form looked up at them, its mechanical eyes dimming. You have done what must be done. And then it was gone. The station began to collapse. Graves grabbed Orlov, hauling her toward the extraction coordinates. The entire structure was tearing itself apart, ancient systems failing, gravity plating malfunctioning. A blinding light enveloped them, and then they were gone. The moment the extraction beam took hold, Graves felt a sensation like being torn apart and reassembled in an instant. The world around him became a chaotic blur, flashes of twisting metal, searing energy, and the collapsing station, all swirling together before reality snapped back into focus. The team crashed onto the Revelations, reinforced steel deck gasping for breath. The transport bay was in emergency lockdown, alarms blaring, medtechs rushing forward, the hum of the ship's shield generators working overtime. Graves rolled onto his side, sucking in a lungful of air. The moment he looked up, his gut clenched. The view outside the observation window was unreal. The station was collapsing into itself. The entity, the thing in the abyss, was still fighting, even as its prison disintegrated. Dark tendrils of pure malice lashed against the fabric of reality, desperate to hold on, to break free. But the Guardian's final act had been absolute. A pulse of energy rippled outward, a last command from whatever consciousness had remained. In the ancient being, the station's ancient failsafe mechanisms activated, creating a gravitational singularity, a controlled collapse. Graves had seen black holes before. He'd seen stars consumed by their own weight. But this was different. This wasn't natural. This was designed. The abyss screamed, its voices echoing through the ship's hull. Not through sound, but through something deeper. Through their very minds. For a split second, Graves wasn't on the Revelation anymore. He was somewhere else, floating in an infinite void of twisted light, surrounded by the echoes of a billion lost souls. The sheer weight of the entity's presence pressed against his thoughts, forcing itself into his mind, showing him things he wasn't meant to see. Worlds burning, galaxies consumed. A hunger so vast, so infinite, that it had no beginning or end. And then, something pulled him back. The vision shattered like broken glass, and Graves was once again on the Revelation, collapsed on the floor, drenched in cold sweat. The others had felt it too. Orlov was clutching her head, eyes wide with terror. Jackson was gripping the deck with white-knuckled hands, his breathing ragged. Even Voss, still standing near the command console, looked shaken. The singularity reached its peak, pulling the last remnants of the station into its impossible gravity well. The abyss gave one last, desperate shriek, and then silence. A shockwave of distorted space rippled outward, but the Revelation's shields held firm. The event horizon collapsed inward, folding into a single point, and then it was gone. Nothing remained, no debris, no wreckage. No signs that the station, or the thing that had lurked inside, had ever existed. Just empty, lifeless space. For the first time since the mission began, no one spoke. The quiet stretched on until Voss finally exhaled and turned toward Graves. What the hell did we just stop? Graves swallowed hard, his hands still trembled. I don't know, he admitted. But I think we barely survived it. The command deck's emergency lights dimmed, shifting back to normal operations. The ship's AI, Aeolus, spoke over the intercom. Anomaly neutralized. No remaining gravitational distortions detected. The area is stable. Orlov was still staring at the empty void outside the observation deck, as if expecting something, anything, to emerge from the darkness. But there was nothing. Only the endless stretch of stars. The team should have felt relief. But none of them did, because deep down, they all knew. This wasn't over. Not really. And Graves couldn't shake the feeling that they had only just scratched the surface of something far, far worse. The silence on the Revelation's bridge stretched, heavy and unnatural. Outside the observation window, space was eerily calm, a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed them only moments ago. But that sense of unease, that primal dread, still clung to the air like a presence unseen. Graves forced himself to move, shaking off the lingering horror of what he had just witnessed. He turned toward the holographic star map, pulling up data on the anomaly's collapse. Orlov stood beside him, arms crossed tight. We need to send a report. The Galactic Council needs to know what happened here. Voss scoffed, running a hand down his face. And what exactly do we tell them? That some kind of ancient malevolent force was buried inside that station, and we barely managed to stop it from breaking free? He shook his head. They'll never believe it. Jackson, still pale from the experience, exhaled sharply. Doesn't matter if they believe it or not. Someone sent that distress signal. Someone knew what was down there. And if we don't warn them... He trailed off, the implication hanging in the air. Graves pulled up the final sensor readings. What he saw froze his blood. The singularity had erased the station completely. But something was wrong. The surrounding stellar radiation levels, the quantum fabric of space-time itself, showed a pattern. A signature, a remnant of the entity's influence, and that signature wasn't dispersing. It was spreading. Graves felt a cold weight settle in his gut. "It didn't die," he murmured. Orlov turned sharply. "What?" Graves zoomed in on the data, tracing the subspace wave distortions left behind by the collapse. The readings were faint but unmistakable, like ripples left in water after something massive had moved. "It didn't die," he repeated. "It moved." A deep, suffocating silence filled the room. Jackson swallowed. "Where?" Graves slowly turned toward the holographic star map, his eyes scanning the data, running calculations. The signal patterns weren't random. They had a direction. And then he saw it. A trajectory. It wasn't drifting. It was traveling, and it was heading straight for the galactic core. Graves felt his heartbeat slow. The implications settled like lead in his stomach. The core was the heart of the known galaxy, a nexus of civilization, home to the greatest empires, the most advanced species, the most densely populated star systems. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just fleeing. It was going somewhere. Orlov was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "We didn't stop it." Jackson clenched his fists. "We freed it." Voss stared at the star map in grim silence. "Then we need to warn them. Now." Graves inhaled slowly, pushing down the rising dread. His mind raced through their options. They had no proof, no recordings, no physical evidence. Their ship logs contained sensor data, but nothing that would convince the bureaucrats and politicians at the core. And worse, if this entity had been locked away for eons, who had imprisoned it, and why? The questions piled on top of each other, each one heavier than the last. Graves turned to Orlov. "Start preparing a full report. But we're not going to the council first," Orlov frowned. "Then who?" Graves tapped a sequence into the console, pulling up encrypted navigation coordinates, a secret location. One only a handful of people in the galaxy even knew existed. The Black Archive. Jackson's head snapped up. "That's just a myth." Graves met his gaze. "So was the thing we just fought." The Black Archive. A hidden station. A vault of lost knowledge, classified research, and ancient secrets that civilizations had deemed too dangerous to exist. If anyone had records of what they had just encountered, it would be there. "We find the truth," Graves said, "and then we decide what happens next." Voss nodded grimly. "And if it's worse than we think?" Graves exhaled slowly. "Then we pray we're not already too late." The Revelation's engines roared to life, aligning toward a point in space that officially didn't exist. As the ship prepared to jump, Graves cast one last look at the empty void outside. They had answered the Galactic SOS, but some messages were never meant to be heard, and some doors, once opened, could never be closed again.